I cannot wait for the online discourse to start around this film, an obsession about which film's better, which one's worse, all this load of crap. Like, I'll be honest with you, both these films are fucking bangers.
Hello?
This one, admittedly, probably a bit more my kind of style. It's a bit more abstract. It's a bit more about a deep sort of philosophical ideal and idea than Obsession, which is just much more of a fun time at the movies. But I just feel like there is going to be an immediate discredit of one or the other about it either being too high art and too pretentious, or the other one not being high art enough. What we really need is for Gen Z films to have both of them, because specifically within the horror genre, we have had for far too long, for pretty much the entirety of this genre, we've had either slapstick, comedic horror films that are fun, good shit, but they aren't going to win awards, they aren't going to get the prestige. But in the past 10 to 15 years, we have had more of that kind of horror.
What the fuck, man?
And what we are now experiencing in a very small sample size is that Obsession and Backrooms are showing that Gen Z can do both. These are completely different films. They are successful and are targeting completely different audiences. What Obsession, in my opinion, lacked in look and feel, Backrooms has in droves. This is an incredibly atmospheric film that looks incredible. This film looks like it is being directed and shot by a 20-30 year veteran of Hollywood, and yet this was shot and directed by a child, a kid who until recently his main motivation in life was waking up and hoping that his spots had disappeared. An incredible feat that at such a young age he is able to grasp what an audience wants to feel and what they want to look at that is interesting and also thought-provoking. The cinematography, particularly in this film, is so worthwhile because it is not static. It is not just the same sort of camera angles the entire film. It shifts and it changes with the acts and with the characters that it's focusing on. It becomes more dynamic and emotive when Chiwetel Ejiofor's character Clark becomes a bit more psychotic and is clearly exhibiting that something is wrong with him. However, when we focus more on Renate Reinsve's character Mary, it is more static, it shows less movement, and a grasp of cinematography and atmosphere in that sense is something that Kane Parsons has way beyond his age. He has a feel for those things that is way beyond what a 20-year-old director should understand. What is also really appealing to me about this film that Kane Parsons clearly understands incredibly well is that this film and the Backrooms web series was popular and successful because of the randomness, because of the randomly generated nature. We are watching this going, there's a fucking steering wheel from a ship.
Are you ready, kids?
The scariest thing that can happen is for the camera to move and shift because we do not know what is going to be around that corner. We might have turned 20 corners in this film, and that 21st might just be the scariest. And what this film has in droves is an unsettling nature to it. I don't think that this film is terrifying. I thought that Obsession was pretty scary. I don't think that this film is terrifying. I do think that is deeply unsettling. I never for a moment felt comfortable. And coupled with that, what Kane Parsons uses so much is jump scares, which should be expected given that one of his mentors and producers is James Wan, the master of the jump scare. And Kane Parsons isn't using the jump scare here as the be-all and end-all. He is using it as a punctuation mark, and then we're right back into that atmosphere. And then sometimes we'll go another half an hour without a jump scare. It's not constant. It's not feeling like it's relying on jump scares in order to achieve its horror. It's a melding of look, feel, atmosphere, and jump scares. I think that that's a new, interesting way to use it, whereas jump scares had become so overtly reliant for directors to use in their films. On to performances, I think that Chiwetel Ejiofor is excellent in this film. He's absolutely unhinged. He is really fucking going for it in this film. I love his performance. I will say that I think Renate Reinsve is slightly underused in this film. I don't think that she is given a whole lot to do, and in some respects her character is kind of relying on stereotypical tropes about, well, if a woman is feeling lost in her life, it's probably because she needs to have a child.
Well, imagine my shock.
But also this film is kind of hinting at the fact that the stereotypical things that we want out of life are those things that reveal that there is meaning in life. It's kind of stereotypical, it's kind of tropey, it's kind of caricature, but also the film understands that it is those things. And in some sense, Ejiofor's character is also in that sort of tropey nature as well, which is that he's a man without purpose whose wife has left him. Oh, what a surprise. It's nothing new, but the film is kind of attempting to steer us in a new direction, that those things aren't bad things to be hung up on. Will probably come down upon whether or not you think those things are meaningful and the most meaningful things out of life. Possibly my biggest criticisms of this film come in its writing. I can feel the structure of the film moving about halfway through the film. I can feel that it's about to shift and that it is going to move from one character to another. I also feel that the finale is pretty melodramatic and is pretty on the nose in terms of its subtext. I feel like the strengths of this film, as I said, are all its atmosphere and its look and its feel. And part of what lends so kindly to that is that the writing is so minimalist. So then when the film feels like it needs to cap all of this off in one grand moment where these two characters come together, it doesn't work. It feels over the top, and it feels like it's kind of just like, oh well, the characters have to have this moment, so we have to write it as such. It's kind of disappointing in that sense. I also think that because the writing is pretty minimalist and not much happens in this film, there will be a lot of people who will come away from this film thinking, oh, this is boring, not much happens. And I can kind of understand that as a valid take, to be honest with you. I'm personally all for this. I think that the abstract nature of this film really works for me, but I could understand if you thought that this was a boring film. That would be perfectly plausible in my opinion. And my last criticism, I would say, is that the characters move in a very Christopher Nolan, Alex Garland sort of way, which is that they aren't really characters. They are pieces on a chessboard that are moved and maneuvered around in order to explore a theme. And ultimately, it makes the characters a bit distant from us, and it makes us feel like we can't really connect with them on the way that we can connect with a Bear or a Nikki. That again is not necessarily a bad thing. I think that that is something that you probably develop over the course of your career. That's very difficult to achieve in your first feature film, especially when the web series that this film is based off of didn't really have characters in it to begin with. And again, this brings us back to my original point, which is that the atmosphere and the feel is the main focus of this film, and that is where the achievements of this really lie. I think that this film and Obsession are perfectly different and provide completely different things. What Obsession and Curry Barker excel in is character development and plot, and what this film excels in is atmosphere and feel. And adversely, what each struggles with is the other's strength. This is very much one where you can't really compare them, but because of the nature of so much of the marketing and the connection in their ages and the connection in how they have risen to the point where they are going to be compared. But we have to make sure that this doesn't turn negative, that this doesn't turn into some sort of bloodbath about, well, I'm an Obsession fan, I couldn't possibly like Backrooms. They are both really good. It is merely a matter of preference, in my opinion. There is an objective quality of both, and it is important that these two filmmakers are seen as the path forward for those like them, for those that are going to come up through YouTube just like them. Both of these films are great. There is objective quality here, and Backrooms is a great fucking film.